All right, so we're starting off with a blank workbook. We already have a blank workbook. In fact, before we get to the workbook, let's take a look at something in Chrome. Let's suppose you have an internship. Oh, has anyone here already been on an internship? A few of you, yeah, in your life, anytime. Okay, so for those of you who've been on an internship, for how many of you did you feel like your internship was like doing work that was like mindless? Like the reason they hired you was to do something that nobody else wanted to do? A few of you. It's not universal. Some of you are saying, half and half that way. I had a guy come to my office. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah, yesterday. That's the first day of the week. It was the first day we were in class. And he had taken this class in 2010 from a different instructor. Right now, I'm the only instructor who teaches it, but it used to be I shared this class with someone else. And he said, hey, professor, I'm about to start working for the state auditor's department. I'm not sure I should be recording this. I'm about to start working for the state auditor's department, and I took this VBA class when I was a student here back in 2010. It's been like the most valuable thing I did. And he told me about the internship that he took right after he had the VBA class, where literally his job was, his whole internship was going to a website, copying data off, putting it into Excel. Go to a website, type something in, do the search, copy it, put it in Excel. That was it. And what you're going to see is that we're going to teach you how to automate stuff like that, like today. So he knew how to automate. He did his whole internship in the first week. It was like a 2 or 3 month internship. He was done. And so he was able to spend the rest of his internship like automating other processes. They were like, whoa, super. Do you want to work for us full time? He's all, not a chance. I don't know where he went, but he had plenty of offers to choose from. So anyway, the stuff we're going to show you right now, there might be, if you've never been on an internship, you might think, oh no, they would never really hire a human to do this. Oh yeah, they would. In fact, I had a student who, I think this sounds crazy. Of all the companies that you think would like know how to crawl a website to get information from their competitors, you got to think Amazon is like the company that probably does that better than anyone else. I had one of my former students, intern for Amazon, and that was his job. It was to go to a website, get information, and check the competitive market for a particular product. The reason Amazon has most of this stuff automated, but his particular area was in digital cameras. The thing you don't know about digital cameras. Digital cameras, the manufacturers have very strict controls on the price. They say, listen, you want to buy the Canon, whatever Canon sells, camera, you want to be a distributor for us, you want the right to sell this, you are going to sell it at this price, and there is no variation. And so how do you compete in an online world where you can't change the price? What would you do? You can't change the price. How are you going to compete? What's that?
Change the shipping price.
Okay, shipping price.
Free cases.
Aha! That's how they do it. They throw in all kinds of other stuff. And so the way that Amazon's trying to compete is they got to make sure that the bundles that they're including are still competitive. And that was like outside the boundaries of their normal way of comparing prices among products online. Hire the intern. That's what he did every morning. Check to make sure this stuff is that way. So, yeah, it took him. He said, "There's no way I want to do this." And it's like over that weekend, he wrote a program. He said, I did go to sacrament meeting, but it was the rest of the weekend that I was working on this program. So Monday morning, after my first week, I had a program that would do this whole thing automatically. What he didn't know is that department at Amazon had actually talked to their OIT department to have this process automated. And they said, yeah, we'll do it for you. It's going to take us a year, and it's going to cost you an employee for a year to write the program to do this. He did it over the weekend in Excel. Was it as robust as they would have gotten for a year? No. But it worked. They were absolutely blown away. I think he did take the job at Amazon. This guy did take the job at Amazon. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about today. So let's just suppose that here's your internship, finance.yahoo.com. And say you've got to pick up the price-earnings ratio and the earnings per share for a couple of different stocks, or for lots of different stocks. Maybe you do it every day. Maybe you have to do it for 1,000 stocks. I don't know. So you come here, you type to the quote lookup here, you type in some ticker symbol, Southwest Airlines, LUV, feel the love. and it will bring that information in. You then copy that price earnings ratio 1432, come back to your worksheet, which you set it like this: TICKER, PE ratio, the EPS, LUV. Maybe you're copying and pasting. Maybe you're typing it in 14.32. You go back and get the earnings per share, 3.52, 3.52, and you move on. What is the big problem with doing this, with doing data entry this way, doing data collection this way?
Change it.
All right, change it. It's going to change tomorrow. Let's see, the price earnings ratio, the earnings per share, price earnings ratio. Yeah, the price earnings ratio is pretty volatile because it changes with price every day. Earnings per share, that changes whenever they report earnings. And so that's pretty stable. But yeah, you're right, it changes all the time. You have to do it over and over again. That's not the biggest problem. What's the biggest problem? Human error is by far the biggest problem. Where is your mind going to be while you're doing this? Anywhere else. I don't know where it's going. It's not going to be here. It'll be somewhere else. And you'll make these kinds of mistakes that, like you put in the wrong ticker symbol, or instead of copying the price earnings ratio, you copy in the beta. You miss it by one line, you copy it over. And once it gets here, it looks just like a normal other price earnings, not a very good price earnings ratio, but it looks like a price earnings ratio. And so what else do we have here? We've got Google, Apple, American Express, Microsoft, Oracle. I don't know. I guess that's enough. So what would be great is if we had like an information slave that just loved to do this stuff all day long. Even though it's a slave, we want the slave to be fulfilled in life. And so I want to enjoy doing the work. But we could just say, go get this information for these 1,000 stock tickers, and let me know when you're done. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah, it turns out that's what we have with Excel, with a little bit of VBA, and the Web Query Wizard. That's what we're going to see us do today. And so that's what's next. Okay, you ready to do it? So I'm going to go ahead and name this sheet. I could get by leaving it. I could name it sheet 1. Leave it sheet 1. I'm going to call it tickers. I'm going to create a new sheet for my Web Query Wizard, which I will call Web Query. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a web query. Turns out, most folks don't know this, but built right into Excel on the Data tab, there is a little internet browser. There's a web browser right here. So data, get external data. That's the first. If you have higher resolution, it's actually already expanded. But then from web, if all of your other browsers break, you've got one right here that you can open up and use. It's not a very good browser. In fact, it doesn't do very well with active content. So I'm trying to run a script here, and it's going, yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about. Do you want to keep running scripts on this page? No, not really. Don't do this with me. I don't want you all to experience the pain I'm about to experience. But let me show you this. I'm just going to bring this. Actually, I'm looking at this stock ticker or this URL that I have over here. finance.yahoo.com/love, the ticker symbol, !P = love. Do you really think you need all that much love here? I'm just curious, what happens if we get rid of just, the first one might be enough to get us there. And I'm looking at that, it's refreshing. And when it comes up, someday, okay, trust me, it's going to be the same. It's the same page. So I'm going to paste that in here. Don't do this, because you're going to see the problem. I'll say go. And that web page over at finance.yahoo.com has lots of active content on it. And so, here's the first error. Do you want to keep running on this page? No. I don't want to run any more scripts. But it does anyway. Near as I can tell, the yes and no button do exactly the same thing. Why do they have them both here? In case one breaks, you've got another one to click on. So it's going to come through here, and it's going to bring all this data in. It's going to have a few more errors here. And if everything goes well, by the time all the data are in, it'll give me the chance to import it. But it's just kind of too much for the web query wizard to handle. Now, this site is not too much for the web query to handle. It's too much for the web query wizard, this thing that's helping us build this page, to handle. So at this point, it's not even giving me an import button. I really want to have an import button here. So I click on import. No good. What's this? There's an import. So I can import. So instead, we're going to use, I'm going to have you build this on some random website. In fact, it will be random.org. Random.org is a much simpler website. So go ahead and build this web query with me. So I'm going to go to random.org. I think it's only going to have one script on the page. Want to keep running scripts? No. There we go. I've got an import button. Ultimately, you're going to see that we can change what website this web query is looking at. But just because the page we really want is a little too complex for our little browser to handle, we're just going to use random.org. So we're okay to this point? Everyone's all right? Looking good? All right, now I'm going to say import. And it's going to say, great, where do you want to import this stuff to? I'm going to put it in A2. I've got something else in mind for A1. We'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to put it in A2. If I have to click on it and choose a different one, okay. A2, I'll say all right, and it will bring back that information. And this really is a web query in the sense that I could refresh it. I could come here to my data tab, and I could choose refresh all, and that will say, oh, we've got a connection to this web server. It'll send a request, bring that page back down, and if whatever data has changed on that, it'll then come in here into my Excel workbook. Really very slick. In fact, if I want to, don't do this, but take a look at this. I could right-click and choose Data Range Properties, and I could tell this thing to automatically refresh every minute. Just refresh itself. I don't have to tell it to refresh, just refresh itself. I'm not going to do that because that'd be kind of rude. Folks at Yahoo are giving me this data. What do they charge me for this data? Nothing. What does it cost them to give it to me? Almost nothing. But it costs them something. So I really should view this as a resource that I should play nice here. And I shouldn't refresh it every minute just in case I might want to happen to look at it sometime I want it to be refreshed. But the point is, it's important. Okay, so now here's what I'd like to do. I would like to come back to my list of tickers, and I want to say, all right, I'm going to record the process of copying one of these ticker symbols, pasting it over here in A1, updating this macro, or updating this web query to be able to pull the information for that stock ticker, find the price-earnings ratio, find the PE, or the earnings per share, bring them over to my sheet, and then we're done. That's what I'd like to do. And so we're going to do a process that will be very common as you start a new kind of thing, to automate a new procedure you're not sure how to do. We're going to record ourselves doing it once, and then we'll figure out how to make it happen over and over again. Now, unfortunately, this whole web query wizard and the macro recorder, they don't quite play nice with each other, so we're going to do it in a couple of different steps. We're going to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to come here to my tickers sheet, and I'm going to say, before I start recording, I'm going to say, I want to think about two things. Number one, where should the user's active cell be when they run this macro? And wherever that is, we're going to start there. We're going to make sure that's where we started before we start recording. And then, by the time we're finished recording, I want to ask the question, where should the active cell leave off when the user is done running the macro? And I want to make sure that in recording, I leave it off at that point. Okay, so let's answer those two questions. Where should the active cell be when we start recording? We're going to get the information for one stock ticker. Where should it be? Yeah, on one of these stocks, no matter which one, any one of these stock tickers. Okay, that was the easy question. Where should it leave off? Okay, I'm going to start on A4. Where should it leave off? Some are saying C4, some are saying A5. I like A5 better, because if I leave off on A5, I'm ready to run the macro again, and it'll pull the next data. Run it again, pull the next data, run it again, pull the next data. Okay. So I guess I'll start here on American Express. That's fine. I'll come to my developer tab. Now maybe some of you have joined us since the last class. Is there anyone who does not have the developer tab? Okay, good. Developer tab, record macro. I'm going to give it a name, stock data. Stock data.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So there's personal workbook and this workbook. If you like your personal workbook, you can leave later. You save it to this workbook. What is that? Like it's only on particular pieces.
Yeah. So the question is, for those of you who are watching this on video. I'll repeat the question. So the question is, what's the difference, personal macro workbook or this workbook? Here's the difference. I can run any macro that is in an open workbook. Once I record a macro into the personal macro workbook, it creates a workbook that will open every time Excel gets opened. It'll open this workbook and hide it. It's called personal.xlsb, I think. And so if I put in the personal macro workbook, I'm saying this is the macro that I want to have around all the time. Every time I open up Excel on this machine, all those macros are available to me. If I put it in this workbook, I'm saying, you know what, this macro really pertains specifically to this workbook only. And I don't really want to have it available unless this workbook is open. So we're going to do everything in this class is going to go in this workbook. Let's see, this is stock data, so I should probably put Control S here. What would that do? Yeah, Control S does save, so I better put something else like Control Shift S in there. Did I tell you about the guy? I don't think I did. Last time we were together. I was teaching, before I was a professor, I was teaching this class. It was probably 1997, 1996. I was teaching this class of some company in Los Angeles, Blue Cross in California or something. Like 12 students, and we had a student in the back of class. So I sat in the back of class. It's like a 3-day class. Sat in the back of class, and throughout the whole class, he made annoying comments. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
In your classes? Yeah. Every single class I was ever in had a student like that. Because it was me. I was the guy doing that. Anyway, we had just gone over something, the code that you could use to close the active workbook, save the changes without prompting the user. You just want to save and close. That's the one line that would do that. And he kind of had, this guy had like this nasally voice, and he goes, what if you wanted to close the active workbook without saving the changes, without prompting the user? Closing the active workbook without prompting the user and without saving the changes. There's no good thing you can do with that line of code, but it was just changing one parameter from true to false, and it would behave exactly that way. So I showed, just change true to false, exactly how it would behave. About a minute and a half later, he goes, class, I'm laughing. Kind of looked at him. Said, I just made a macro that closes the active workbook without prompting the user, without saving the changes, and I assigned the shortcut key Control S. We gave him a courtesy laugh and we moved on. Like an hour later, I'm like, hey, let's break for lunch. Everyone save your work. You know where this is going? He goes, what? Oh. We all had a nice laugh, and then we went to lunch. Okay, so Control Shift S would be better in this case. I don't know, get data from Yahoo. Okay. We say okay, and now everything we do is being recorded by Excel. So I don't want to click anywhere. If I click anywhere else, it's going to record. Click somewhere else. I'm already on the active cell. That's why I wanted to make sure I was on a ticker symbol before I started. Press Control C. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here to my web query, select my web query page. It's going to record, activate the web query sheet. Uh-oh. I'm in A1 right now. If I just paste it here, it's going to paste it in the active cell. Darn it. I need to do something to tell it to select A1. So I'll just click off of A1 and then come back to A1. And that'll record, select A1. It turns out if I go and select other cells, it doesn't really record that. It only records like the last one. So it will only remember the last one. It realizes going and selecting around like that might be fun, but it's not really productive. And so it ignores it. Now I'm going to paste. Just press Enter, and that will paste American Express in. Okay. So I recorded so far, copying, coming to the right sheet, and pasting. Now, I want to edit this web query so that it will get the data for American Express. The trouble is, right now, it's looking at random.org. It's not even looking at the right sheet. It's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record myself editing the query, and that will give me the code that I need to be able to make the modification. I'll go change it in code, but it will at least build the structure for me. So I'll click anywhere on the results of the query. A2 will be fine. I will right-click, and I will choose Edit Query. And it will bring that web query back up for random.org. And now, remember how I told you it records everything you do? That's not entirely true. Anytime we get to a dialog box while we're recording, the macro recorder says, oh, a dialog box. I can see you need a little private time here. I'll avert my eye. And it doesn't pay attention to what you're doing in this dialog box until you press OK. Or, in this case, import. And then it looks at how you have it configured, and it says, OK, that's the way it's configured. So process doesn't get recorded here, only configuration. So I'm not going to, even if I change something here, it wouldn't record that I changed it, it would just record how the new configuration is. So I'm just going to click import. And that will record the code that I need to be able to modify that query. Now, at this point, since this isn't even bringing back the right data, I can't look for the data that I want, I'm going to stop recording here, and we're going to go and modify this web query to bring the right data in, and then we'll start recording again.
So you want it to be on backup ticker sheet A5?
Oh yeah, I want to end up, but I'm kind of stopping my recording here. And I'll start recording again, and then I want to end up over there when we're done. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I'll stop. You can do on the developer tab. You say record macro, now it says stop. Or, I think it's right behind my head. Yeah, you got this little button down here, which is the record macro or stop right here that you can use as well. All right, let's go take a look at what we've recorded. Whew, it might be a little frightening. I'm going to come to the develop. I'm on the developer tab. I'm going to choose my list of macros. It should be pretty easy to track down. I think I only have one. There it is, stock data. If I tried to run it here, it would try to run. Don't run it because I'm not even on the right place to run this. But I will try edit. That'll take me right to this particular part. Actually, if you click edit, that's okay. But I'm gonna run it. You go ahead and click edit or click run. Let me show you what happens. It turns out that beginning with Excel 2013, the macro recorder introduced some kind of error while it's recording a web query. It's really kind of a bizarre thing. It worked great in 2007 and 2010. It records an extraneous line that's bad syntax. I'm going to run this and you'll see what happens. Actually, let me close this here. I'm going to come back here and run it. Control-Shift-S. It says, runtime error 5, invalid procedure call. I'll click on debug and it'll take me right to the line that had the error. Command type 0. It gets to this point here and says command type 0. Here's where we're dealing with the web query, the query table that's associated with the selection. And it gets to command type 0 and it says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And you know what I think? You just recorded this. What do you mean you don't know what we're talking about here? I have no idea what it's trying to accomplish. This line is extraneous. So I'm going to comment that out or I'll delete it. And then it would finish running. I'm going to stop it so we can talk to the code. So whenever you record a web query, you're going to get this command type equals 0. It's a line you just have to disable. It doesn't take too much effort to find that line, because when you run it, it will stop there. It will show you the line you have to erase. Okay, so let's just take a look at what we're doing. So first of all, remember, it's a macro, so it's going to be a VBA sub procedure. Starts with the keyword sub, ends with the keyword end sub. Anything that starts with a single quote is a comment. It's just a note to some future programmer. So here's our first line of executable code. And this is what we did. We said, hey, whatever is selected, copy it. That's what we did. We copied the active sub. And then, out of all the sheets, there's one named web query. We selected that. That became active. Then we selected cell A1, range A1.select. And then we pasted. And we're getting the stock ticker, put it here into A1. It turns out, it seems a little weird to me that we don't paste to a range. There's not a paste method of the range, it's the paste method of the sheet. Whatever sheet is active, we're going to paste it. And it goes to whatever the active cell is, but that's how paste works. Here's the first line that seems a little bit weird. Application.cutCopy mode equals false. You know when you press Control-C on a cell, you get like little flashing lights that go around the cell? That's cut copy mode is true. When you're in cut copy mode, things behave differently. What does the enter key normally do when you're just using Excel? You hit enter, what happens? Moves you down. What happens if you hit enter when you're in cut copy mode? It pastes. Yeah, you're in a different state of the application. Things behave differently. So anyway, we came out of, because we pasted, actually I don't think it's because we pasted, I think it's because we went to edit this query that it goes, we come out of cut copy mode. We then selected A2, and now this next block here is what's going to happen with, this is what it recorded when we went to modify the web query. It says, listen, you're bringing the whole entire page. It's going to be, we're not going to try to do any web formatting and stuff. But do you see, what's the line that looks really interesting here? Yeah, the connection, look, the URL is right here. Hey, I'm just going to bring that URL from Southwest Airlines, and I'm going to replace just the HTTP part. It turns out that the same query table can be used for doing a database query and probably some other kinds of queries as well. But this is going to be a web query, so we're telling the connection this is a URL. So the URL semicolon stays, but then I'm going to paste in the rest of the actual URL that I want to go to. So it turns out the web query can handle this page from finance.yahoo.com. It's the wizard that records this code, that generates it, that has the problem with it. So the thing was, we went to random.org just to get the stuff recorded, and now we'll replace it with the URL that we really want. Yes?
When you just put in that URL, isn't it always going to do the same one with the web?
Yes, it will. So the question is, hey, we got a problem here. The computer's looking for something. What's the computer looking for? The computer's looking for love, which is kind of sad, really. But you're right. Yeah. So this is here, and it's going to look for this ticker symbol every time. Okay. So we have to make some modification here. But to understand this, let's take a look. When I get to this line right up here, this first one, selection.copy, this is something I am asking the VBA interpreter to understand. I'm saying, look at this line and figure it out. What does selection mean? And the interpreter goes, selection. That sounds familiar. He goes, oh wait, yeah, that's whatever is selected. And then it says .copy. That's got to be a method of the thing that's selected. Aha, I know how to do that. And it figures out what to do with that. So same thing here. Sheets, we've got to figure that out. Now, when we have something that we're telling it, listen, we don't want you, interpreter, to understand this. This is just some characters you got to keep track of. Incidentally, is something going to try to understand finance.yahoo.com? Yeah, but it's not the VBA interpreter. We're just going to hand that collection, we're going to hand this collection of characters to the web query object itself, and it's going to figure out what to do with it, but the interpreter doesn't have to know what to do with it. So the way we tell it, interpreter, just keep track of these characters, don't try to understand them, is by putting quotes around it. So we've got what we refer to as a string literal. It's a string of characters, and it's a set of characters to keep track of, not to understand. And so we put double quotes around it. And so that's the case here. You don't want LUV, that ticker symbol, we're going to get rid of that. And instead, we are going to glue onto that, ampersand, so that will concatenate onto that. And now we got to tell it to put in AXP or GOOG, whatever the ticker symbol is that we copied into A1. So now we're going to give it something that we want it to understand, figure out what the value of cell A1 is, and to put that right here onto this string. And so we'll say range A1 dot value. That's why we pasted the ticker symbol into A1, so we would know exactly where that is. So that we could, at this point, we can tell it, we'll get the value out of A1, put it as a part of this URL. The rest of these lines, right down to here, we don't even need to even leave them in here because it's just, we're not changing any of that. That's the way it's already configured. I'm going to leave them there because I'd like to change this as little as possible, but we could delete them. This last one's important. The .refresh says, make the request to the web server. Make the request to this web server and pull the information in that we need. So that's the one session going to get the data. Okay, so the only thing we changed here was we told it the real URL we wanted to go to, and we built it to look into range A1 to get the ticker symbol that we wanted to look at. And then we also commented out this line command type equals 0. Yes?
Does it matter if there's space on either side of
The ampersand here?
Yeah.
Yes. If I try to take those spaces out, when I leave the line, it's going to say, you got to put those spaces back. So or if you want to put a bunch more in there, it's going to be like, listen, buddy, there's only so many spaces to work with here. Don't be wasting them. That's wasteful. And it'll get rid of them. So it tries to standardize the syntax as often as it can. Question is it case sensitive? How I wish you hadn't asked that question. Because the answer is a little bit complex. For the name of an object or the name of a method, for the fundamental parts of the language, sub, end sub, with, not case sensitive. But when we're looking at strings, if we're comparing two strings, we want to know that these two strings equal each other, both inside quotes, then it's going to be case sensitive.
But the functions and methods are
The names of functions, methods, properties are not case sensitive.
You create a method that has lowercase, that doesn't matter.
That's right, yeah. So if you create a function, that whatever case you put to it, you can call it any other case. If it turns out that the editor will look at that and go, oh, I recognize that function, and it'll change the case to match the way you define it in the function. But it's not case sensitive. So even if you force it not to do that, it will still run. Go ahead.
So why is range and the code inside the quotes of range also not case sensitive?
This right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, why is this case sensitive? And I'm not quite sure what you mean, but
I thought you said inside quotes it is case sensitive. So
Yeah,
would
let's
that
take a
not
look.
work because then this would be a capital A?
so you're thinking that should be a capital A to refer to range A1,
Yeah.
and the answer is no. The range method accepts this argument, and it goes, yeah, I don't care what the case is. But here's the point. If I was just to say print 1 equals 1, is that true or false? That's true. Okay, similar with string literals. A equals A, true or false? True. This is what I meant when I said string comparisons are
Oh, string comparison.
case sensitive. Little a equals capital A, false. So that's the answer to the question. That's like the place that it's case sensitive. Okay, so I should be able to run this, and what it should do, it should take whatever ticker symbol I have selected. It should copy that into A1 of the web query sheet, and then it should bring in the data for that from finance.yahoo.com. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to choose my line on my ticker sheet that says Google, and Control-Shift-S, and it should bring that data in sometime today. Now, here we go. So I plugged in Goog in A1. Everything from A2 down is what came back from finance.yahoo.com, and we can see that even though this first line shows that it's got the right ticker symbol. Here's another place, Alphabet Inc., which is Goog, and some other information. So these numbers that we're actually looking for down here, EPS or PE ratio, TTM, trailing 12 months. This is actually the PE ratio for Google. That's what we're after. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to copy this data. I want to record myself copying this data, bringing it back into the table, and kind of finishing off this process. You ready to do it? All right, let's do it. So I would have left off here in the recording process. I would have been on A2 where I edited that query. So I'm going to go back there. Turns out it could have been wherever I wanted to, but we'll just kind of pick up where we left off. And I'll start recording again. I'll record a new macro. So developer, record macro. Macro 2 is a fabulous name for this because we're really just getting the steps. We're going to combine these steps into our other macros. So I'll leave it macro 2, that's fine. No shortcut key. And we'll say OK. I should have scrolled down to show you something before I started recording. That's okay. So it turns out that the actual row that I'm on for the data is not reliable. This is a pretty complex web page. And if some more data ends up being above the data I'm looking for, I might be looking on row 81, 82, 83, somewhere in there. So I can't just say go to B82 and pull the information from there. So what should I do?
Control F.
Yeah, fine. I'll record myself doing a find. I'll do it. Control F. What do I want to look for? PE space ratio TTM. Trailing 12 months. Probably case. I think I got the case right here. But here I'm going to make a little change in the options here as well. I'm going to look for the entire. I want to match the entire cell contents. What I want to be careful of, what if there's some note up above this that says, some note about the PE ratio? I don't want to accidentally find that cell. So I'm looking for a cell where the full contents are PE space ratio space, open parenthesis, TTM close parenthesis. I hope I typed it right. Let's find out. I'll say find next. Ah, and it found it. That's the one we're after. Yeah, now I look at it, I could have matched case, and it would be even a stronger search. I didn't, and that's okay. This will be okay. So I'll now close my Find and Replace window. Now I got to be careful, because now if I click on B81, what's it going to record? Yeah, Yeah, go to B81. I don't want to. I want to tell it move over one to the right. Ooh. You're familiar with writing a formula with this idea of an absolute versus a relative reference. There's a similar notion when you're recording a macro. And the way you see it is right here on the Developer tab, right below where you start recording the macro, there's this thing called Use Relative References. I click on that, and it sticks on. And I can turn that on and off depending on how I want it to behave while I'm recording. So now I'm using relative references. So now when I click on B81, it'll record, move over one column, and then select one cell. I'll copy that. I'll go back to my tickers page. Do I want relative or absolute movement now? Yeah, relative. I want to just come one cell to the right. So I'll click that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, PE ratio. And I'll paste. I'll go back to my web query. EPS. Should I do another search for EPS? Or am I pretty comfortable it's going to be the next one? I'm pretty comfortable it's going to be the next one, so I'll just select it. And now it's recording. Select the next one down. Copy. Back to tickers. Move over one. Paste. Am I done? One more thing to do. What is it? End off where I want to end off. Relative or absolute? Relative. So I'll leave that relative reference set, and I'll stop recording. Okay. Well, I think we're in good shape. Let me give it a shot. Control-Shift-S, and let's see if it brings in the information for Apple. Should be. Oh, I haven't joined the two macros yet. So right now, I've just done the first half of the macro, and if I want to, I could run that second one. It should finish off from here, which I'll do, and then I'll go and join these together. So developer, macros, macro 2, run, and that's brought in the information from Apple. But I would like them to run all at once. So let's go take a look at the code. So back on the developer tab, go to my list of macros, and I'm going to choose edit on either one of these. They're going to be right next to each other. It doesn't really matter. I'll edit macro 2, that's fine. Okay, so here's the very top of my module. We'll talk about option explicit later in life. Here's the one we record first, stock data. It ends here, end sub, and then right after it comes the next one we recorded. What I really want to do is say, listen, once I've finished these steps here, don't end the macro. Don't start the next macro. Just keep going. And so I'm just gonna copy all the lines between that end with and the cells.find. I'm going to delete them. So instead of ending the macro and starting a new macro, it's just going to keep right on going. So now the sub that I have at the top here will be ended by the end sub that was at the end of the other macro. So I've just put these all out into one long macro. So it was a little bit complex. We had to record this macro in two parts and then join it together, just because the web query wizard's a little bit defective, a little deficient. But we're okay. Now we're in pretty good shape. I should be able to come here to American Express, Control-Shift-S. We should pull that information in right here. Microsoft, Control-Shift-S. It'll pull that in. And if I only had these 6 stickers to do, these 6 stock tickers to do, I had to do them every day, I'm done. In the morning, I'll come in, I've got to get the data for the day. I'll press Control-Shift-S 6 times, and we'll move on. But what if I don't have 6? What if instead of 6, I've got 600 or 6,000? What's the problem? My pinky's going to get tired pressing Control-Shift-S for 2 hours. And so I would be much happier if I could say, look, information slave, just do the whole thing. In fact, it's going to take a little while. While you're doing that, I'm going to go get a latte. Or a Diet Dr. Pepper. Caffeine-free. Diet Dr. Pepper. And by the way, when you're done getting all this data, send me a text message so I know it's time to come back. Can I make Excel send me a text message? Yes. Oh, yeah. Am I going to show you in this class how to make Excel send you a text message? Oh, yeah. It won't be today, but that's coming. I'll show you how to do it.
Forbidden curses.
What's that?
About the forbidden curses in Harry Potter.
curses.
There, yourself do that.
Yeah, there actually are forbidden things, but we don't cover them in this class. We'll have to go to the Defense Against the Dark Apps class. Okay. All right. So now, that's what we'd like to do. I'm going to delete this data so that when we run the whole thing, we'll see it again. It turns out that to do this, to be able to make this macro run over and over and over, I'm going to have to create what's called, in programming lingo, a loop. There's no way to record a loop. Recording myself doing just records the steps. But I'd like to say, look, I've got these steps now working great. I want it to do it 1,000 times, or 100 times, or 5 times. Or I want to keep doing it until I run out of data. I don't care how much there is. That's what we're going to see. So let's go back to our code. I'll just press Alt-Tab to take me back to my code window. Press Alt-F11 again, that would bring it, or there's lots of ways to get back there. Developer tab, VBA. So I've got this kind of whole long steps of code here, and I want it to happen over and over again. So I could build a loop right around this. Question?
So we have stock data and stock data 2. How do you like save as? So you preserve stock data 1 and stock data 2, but you create like a new macro that combines the two. Does that make sense? So you
Yeah.
So you like have, so when you combine the two, it's a new macro rather than replacing the first.
So in case you want to have those two macros around, but you want to be able to say, you know what, you have another macro that runs the first one and then runs the second one right after it.
Right. So
You're going to see that right now.
Okay. So when you combine them, you still preserve the other ones rather than saving.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't, right? I merged these into one because this is a process that I want to happen together.
Right.
But you'll see how to do that right now. Okay. So instead of putting the loop kind of around this, for this very reason, I would like stock data. It's pretty useful the way it is. It gets the information for one stock ticker. Even though I'm thinking, yeah, I'd like to do a lot of time, I might think, this one doesn't look right. I want to make sure that this one is right. I'll check that again. I just want to run that one. So that's kind of nice the way it is. So instead of modifying this subprocedure, I'm going to make another one. Only this one, I'm going to write from scratch by hand. Here we go. I can put it at the top or the bottom, wouldn't matter. I can't do it on the inside of it. It's got to be either before the sub or after the end sub. Here's how I do it. Sub, and I'll call it get all data. Now, when I create a subprocedure, these parentheses are required, but watch what happens when I just hit enter. The editor here goes, oh, you're making a subprocedure. You forgot the parentheses. I'll put those in there for you. Oh, you're going to need an end sub. I'll put that in there for you. It's really quite thoughtful. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is I would like to have this subprocedure do exactly what the other one does. So here's how I can make one subprocedure, just tell it to go and run another subprocedure. I just put the name of the subprocedure on a line by itself. So now, if I was to run get all data, it would say, okay, great, only one thing to do is stock data. It goes, oh, I know what stock data is. That's a subprocedure down here. And it would come here and it would run these one line at a time. It goes stock data, great. Selection.copy, boom, it does it. Does this, bang, bang, bang. Does all these one line at a time. It gets down here to the end sub, and it goes, I'm done. Where does it go after that? Right back up to where it was called from, and moves on to whatever the next statement is here. In fact, I might want to do this. I might want to say, since we're going to be doing all of these, I want to make sure we start in A2. I want to start right here. Right, stock data assumes you're on a stock ticker, but getting all of them, I want to tell it where to start. So I might just tell it, hey, go select range A2. So now it selects range A2, and then it runs stock data, and then if there were lines after it, it would keep doing it. Okay, now here's the thing. I want it to run stock data over and over again. So I'm going to create a loop. That's a general programming term. It's used the same regardless of the language. And in VBA, there are three main kinds of loops. I'm going to introduce you today to the do loop. We've got a whole chapter that talks specifically about loops. So we're not covering all the details that we can possibly do with this loop, but it'll get this example going. So the do loop starts with the keyword do, D-O. And all the do loop says, all do says is, this is a marker. This is the beginning of the loop. Some point later in the code, we're going to say, go back to the do. Go back to the beginning of the loop, and this is where you come back to. I then execute whatever lines, or include whatever lines I want it to do inside the loop to do over and over again. In this case, it's just one line. Well, it's a bunch of lines, but it's just the one call to that procedure. And then I put the keyword loop, which says go back to the do. Now, I've just created a special kind of loop called an endless loop. I haven't given it any way to get out of this loop. How long is this going to run? Look, folks, forever is a really long time. It is not going to run forever. It's going to run until something weird happens, like there's a power failure, or the battery dies, or there's a network problem, or the internet breaks, or there's a nuclear holocaust, or the second coming. Some unusual thing happens because there's no normal way for this to finish. In this case, stock data is going to move my active cell down one row each time, right? What's going to happen eventually? 1.02 million iterations later, I'm going to get to the bottom of this worksheet. And it's going to try to go one more, and it's going to go, yeah, you can't do that. And it's going to stop. It takes a long time to get to 1.02 million iterations. It reminds me of the time I stopped in at I just got a cell phone. It was before the days of the unlimited calling plan. I drove past this place, unlimited minutes! AT&T or Sprint something. I walk in, really, unlimited minutes. Truth is, we're driving across the state, and my kids need to use the restroom. So I'm engaging the sales rep while the kids are going to the restroom. Unlimited minutes. So if I was on the phone for 1,000 minutes in a month, no additional charge. 10,000 minutes in a month, no additional charge. He saw where I was going with this. He said, look, buddy, you could be on the phone for 1 million minutes, and it wouldn't change the price for that month. I said, are there 1 million minutes in a month? I don't know. Guess so. There's nowhere near 1 million minutes in a month. Anyway, it takes a long time to get to 1 million. I got to give it some way to get out. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do until, and I'll put some clause here, some expression that is either true or false. So I could say do until the active cell's value is equal to something, like stop. So now if I put stop down here, then when the active cell was sitting there on stop, then the active cell's value would equal to stop, and it would go, oh, it's time to stop. What's the problem with this? For all I know, stop is a valid stock ticker, or it may become a valid stock ticker. Maybe it's the company that makes stop signs or something, I don't know. So I don't want to have it stop at stop. I want it to be something that's not going to be a valid stock ticker. So it could be stop with a bunch of hyphens after it or something. Or maybe I would just do stow, or st, or just s, or nothing. Yeah. It seems like a weird way to say nothing. It's a collection of characters. Quote, quote, collection of characters. What's inside the collection? No characters. And that's the value of an empty cell. So I'm going to do until that active cell has nothing in it. Yeah?
So in last class, you showed us the VBA language, the VBA statements.
Yes.
That's the class, and there's kind of a statement to look up to the end line, the end row of that. Can we use that here?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we said, hey, start somewhere down low and then come up here and find something. Yeah, we could do that here. So in that case, we would find the row that had the last data in it, and then we might do until the active cell's row was equal to that value. Yep, there's lots of ways to do that. In fact, anytime you ask the question, is there another way to do this? The answer is almost always yes. There's always more than one way to accomplish it.
Is empty.
So there's something called is empty. That would work as well. Yeah, we're just, kind of taking the simple things today. Yep.
Active is spelled wrong.
A-C-T-I-E. Thank you. Hey, that looks pretty good. I think I'm ready to run this. Now, if I press Control-Shift-S, which of these two does it run? Stock data. So if I want to run this one, I've got a couple of options. I can come to Developer, I can list off my macros, and I can pick Get All Data and run it. I can assign a hotkey to it, but let me show you something else. on my developer tab, I've got this little toolbox right here. Looks like I have a toolbox with a screwdriver and a wrench next to it, so tools. I'll click on that insert menu, and the very first one here is a little button. This is the button control. I'm going to click on that. It's great. Where do you want to put this button? I'll put it right here. Just draw it on here. And it goes, you're making a button. I bet you want to run a macro. I do. I want to run the macro called get all data. I'll say OK. There's my button. It's a great label, button 1. I'm going to label something else. Get all data. Or just get data. I'll click off of it, and now that button is ready to go. I'm going to delete a couple of these just because I don't want it to have to run that long. But now what this should do is when I click that button, it should, say we're going to run get all data, it should take us up to A2, and then it should continue to do this. It'll actually it actually checks at the stop of this loop, it checks is the active cell blank. So we've just moved to A2, and it's going to say is the active cell blank? It goes, nope, that's not true, so we enter the loop. Do that. This loop will take us down 1, or this stock data takes us down 1. We get to the top of the loop and we check again. Is it blank? Nope. So it enters the loop again. And it will end us off here. Is it blank? Nope. It enters the loop again. It ends us off here. We get back to the top. And it goes, is it blank? It goes, yes. It's blank and we're done. Do you see it? Oh, it's glorious. Let me run it. Now, it turns out we're not going to see it actually work. There's some things we can do so you can kind of see it as the data is coming out. But it should say, listen, I don't want to waste the effort to update the screen. And so it will wait until it's completely finished, and it should update it. There's a question over here? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you put do until
Wait a minute.
cell, okay,
It's done. Okay, go ahead.
sweet. So if you do this loop, does it do what's beneath, even if that is true from the get-go?
Ah, that's a good question. So what if I want it to happen? What if I want this? You're saying, what if I want this to execute regardless of the condition at least once? It turns out that I can move this clause to the bottom. If I put it down here, then it doesn't check the loop until it doesn't check the condition until it's executed the loop once. And then once it's done with that, it will check this condition. That's the only difference between putting it at the top and the bottom. Because if you think about it, what's the very next line after this? It's right up here to the do. So the only difference is, does it check it before it runs it once? In this case, we do want it to check it before it runs it once, because in case someone's deleted all this data, we don't want to run it at all. Yep. But yeah, the until clause can go either at the top or the bottom. And there's different clauses I can use. There's different ways I can tell it to get out. Okay, questions here, folks? Yes?
Is the web query in VBA robust enough to like go to a website that has like drop-down menus and then gives you data?
Oh, what if you've got, or worse yet, what if you have to log in?
Right.
And then you've got to pick some drop-downs and you've got to click on a button that says submit, and then you get to the data.
Right.
Web query wizards, nowhere close to it. Well, I think you could probably force the web query wizard to do that. It's ugly. And I'm not going to show you how to do that.
VBA.
But I am going to show you how to remote control a web browser. And then you can do anything. You can say, open up this web page, open this browser, send it to a bigger page, find the username box, the password box, put the values in there. I'll show you how to log into your BYU account automatically. That's towards the end of the semester. Yep.
Can you use VBA inside a browser and then use like JavaScript to use like more complicated?
Oh, so could we use VBA, we open up a web browser, and then tell that web browser to execute some VBA, some arbitrary VBA, or arbitrary JavaScript, like JavaScript that's not even built into the web page?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we could arbitrarily tell it, execute this JavaScript. The JavaScript could live inside of VBA, and we send it to the browser and it'll execute. I'm not going to teach you how to do that unless you ask me to do that once we get to that part of the class. But it's pretty simple. What? Once you get there, it's not that much more to do that part. All right. Question. No, it's not simple, but it's just a little bit more. We're going to spend most of this class doing just a little bit more. by the time we get to the end of the class, you're going to know a whole lot of stuff.
It seems like last time I learned this, you taught it where you would use the web wizard, and you could actually go and click like the little yellow arrow and say, I specifically want the PE ratio.
Yes.
Just bring that in. Don't bring all this extra data in. Is that not, how do we do that now with the wizard not working?
So the question is, because the web query wizard is not working so well on finance.yahoo.com, one of the things that the web query wizard offers us is kind of not available. Let's just take a look. Let me go to another sheet, see if I can find a page that does this. Data, get external data from web finance.google.com. Oops. We've got to find a web page that's got some tables, some HTML tables. Okay, so here's some. So it identifies this, the web query wizard identifies this area over here as saying, listen, you may not want all this stuff. Maybe all you want is that part right there. I should be able to select that, and it's not happy. It's not even happy here.
In the books like thing, you could select it. You just selected like a table.
Yeah, there's just kind of a part of it that you could select.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it's not selecting.
On Yahoo Finance, you can.
If you could get it, actually get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what it will do is it will say, aha, that's the 7th table on this page. And then it will just remember, okay, go here, find the 7th table and bring it in. If the tables are named, it will use the name of the table, which is a little more robust, because depending on how dynamic the page is, what was the 7th table this time might not be the 7th table the next time. So, yeah, so that's a possibility. It turns out that now you actually have enough exposure, we've gone over enough for you to be able to tackle the first project, which is due February 1st. The first project is going to have to do something very similar. It's a little bit more involved, but the building blocks are here. You may be tempted to use that checkbox to get just that portion of the page, but if I remember right, it's kind of not reliable on that particular website, so you should use the approach that we took here in class. Even though you might look at it and go, wait a minute, this one's simpler, I'll just take just this one table. I think you're going to be safer doing what we did. Okay, questions? Yep.
Are you going to post the recording?
Will I post the recording? Not only will I post the recording, I will post the file that we've done here. And that's what I plan to do every day. So whatever we do in class, we'll record, we'll post, and then we'll also include the thing. It takes an hour or so for the thing to encode, so depending on whether I'm still hanging around when it's done encoding, I might post it today or I might post it tomorrow morning. All right, thanks for coming, folks. Class dismissed. Stop. You're too kind.